Okay.
Trump, I look at Trump and I look at a guy, it doesn't make sense how he's behaving because it's in his interest to see the economy do well, to see the stock market go up, because that's how he's going to get reelected. And yet I see him right now locking down an entire country, which is sure to drop the markets, kill business, and potentially kill his reelection. So why would he buy into something like this?
Well, we come back to something I've been chatting with you about all these times. He's a front man. There's a permanent government. You see, this cult controls the permanent government. There's a permanent government in every country, and globally there's a permanent government. That's what I mean. You've got the politicians, whether it's a president from the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, whether it's Labour, goodness knows, Labour, when they're going to do it again, if ever, and Conservatives. And you have the rosettes coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. Here today, gone tomorrow. But the permanent government is always there. This is the cult controlling that government via secret societies, through the financial system, through the intelligence agencies, through the upper echelons of the military, through government administration, and what has become known now as the deep state. And that is always there. George Bush comes, Republican. Obama comes, Democrat. Trump comes, Republican. Come, gone, come, gone. Permanent government, always there. Same in this country, same everywhere. Prime ministers come and go, permanent government, always there. And that's why, overwhelmingly, when you look at the long-term direction of the world, it doesn't change, because the permanent government is driving that direction, and the here today, gone tomorrow politicians are there to give the illusion of democracy, the illusion of people deciding who governs them. See, we have a European Parliament for one reason and one reason only: to say that the European Union is democratic. It's a tyranny, a bureaucratic tyranny. And what is a bureaucratic tyranny? It's a technocracy. The European Union, controlled by bureaucrats, is how the world is meant to be under this technocracy, Hunger Games society. And so someone like Trump will only have so much maneuver. And he will come under tremendous pressure anyway from people around him that, you know, the consequences of you not doing this, oh my goodness me, how will you be remembered? You see, I look at Boris Johnson, and I see his body language, and I've seen one or two of things he said. I don't think personally that Boris Johnson is totally convinced that all this is necessary.
No, he's not.
He's absolutely not. But what's happened is the pressure on him from the permanent government is to do it anyway.
And they work in ways that he might not even understand that it's working on him. It's not like they kick him in the room and say, you're going to do this now.
No, it's
pressures and how you're going to be remembered.
It's pressure
and
and it's also manipulation. I mean, you know, older people watching this will remember Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, which was a comedy series about a prime minister and his civil servants. You know, the sad thing about those programs is that they were absolutely true. They were written by someone who knew, who worked in that whole area. And so there's so many ways that you can manipulate the politicians, and you can basically paint them into corners, and they are brilliant at this manipulation. So, you know, and like we said earlier, once this thing gets the momentum, it takes on a life of its own.
And the fear, it's just
the fear.
And everyone is scared now because they can't see this thing. They can't understand this thing. We can get our heads around war. Maybe we can get our heads around a nuclear weapon, but you can't get your head around this. So it scares you more, and you can manipulate people's minds with this thing.
Of course you can.
Better than anything.
There's no better way of manipulating perception than to trigger the survival mechanism. There's none greater. And so what you're going to have, coming around to what I was saying, is you're going to have pressure from those who have their survival mechanism triggered for governments to make the vaccine compulsory. And people who will not have it are going to be demonized and vilified, just as people who won't have their children vaccinated now are doing so. And you know, when they say there's been this outbreak, it's the anti-vaxxers, they never tell us how many people or how many kids or whatever who've got some disease, like measles or whatever. They never tell us how many have been vaccinated and how many haven't. My boys' mates at school were getting diseases they had been vaccinated for. My boys who were not vaccinated were not getting them.
Okay.
Discuss.
All right, to discuss,
Right.
let's talk about technology and what they're doing in China and Singapore and South Korea. Because the news has been telling us that the cases are dropping massively in China, that Singapore has it under control. I read a whole article last night about how they're tracking everyone with their technology. They're using their mobile phones to find out who they had contact with, hunting those people down and quarantining them. And now they are saying it's a success. South Korea cases dropped, Chinese cases dropped. But they're also saying the Western civilization would never allow this type of intrusive stuff into their information.
Oh my God.
What do you see, David?
No, just let me just intervene there for a second.
Okay.
You have just said, virtually word for word, what was in the Rockefeller Foundation document in 2010 detailing a pandemic scenario based on a flu vaccine. They said, I think I mentioned it kind of in passing earlier, they said China imposed draconian measures and was then praised for doing so, but the West lagged behind because of this thing called freedom and democracy. And but eventually the West caught up and became also draconian. So it's deja vu from the Rockefeller document and from the Event 201 of the Gates Foundation and the World Economic Forum 1%. It's a scenario. It's a script,
And
Brian.
So, yes, I understand what you're saying. So people that don't know, what is this technology in China? Explain how it works and how they track people and how it's become surprisingly even more draconian than it was, because I don't think a lot of people know this.
Well, I've been saying for decades, if you want to know what is planned for the West tomorrow, look at China today. It's no accident that China is right at the center of this whole outbreak, which has gone on to create all this. This is how it works in China. They have millions of face recognition cameras in their cities, gathering in number all the time. And so as you're walking down the street, you are able to be tracked and identified literally in minutes. There have been documentaries that have put someone on the street, and the technology has been challenged to track them and find them. It's taken minutes, gotcha. And so what they're doing, and remember, this is what's planned for the West, and this is why the crazies and the psychopaths in Silicon Valley are so close to China, if the truth be told. You are so tracked in detail in China that they know everything you do all the time, and AI is logging your behavior. And they have something called the social credit system. And when you act in ways that are acceptable to the state, you get credits, social credits. When you act in ways that the state doesn't want you to behave, you get credits taken away. And when you fall below a certain level, consequences kick in. How many people know that millions of Chinese people have been banned from flying? Millions of Chinese people have been banned from going on trains because their social credit score has fallen below the acceptable level. And this is what is possible once you have AI able to track you in detail, minute by minute, in real time, which is what they have in China. What is China? It's a technocracy. That's what it is. And if you look at China today, that's supposed to be the world tomorrow. Because this economic, viral, whatever you want to call it, war, for want of a term, China's meant to win it. And I don't mean the Chinese regime, and I certainly don't mean the Chinese people. I mean the Chinese model. The Chinese structure of society and its authoritarian imposition and AI technocracy, minute by minute, real-time tracking of the population, that is exactly what I've been describing is planned for the world for 30 years. And, you know, they laughed at me. They laughed at me in almost historic amounts and numbers. Well, I wonder how many who laughed then are still laughing now. Because, you know, people can say that Ike's mad, that's that, yeah. But what they can't deny is what I've been writing for 30 years is happening all around them now. And there's a simple equation. The more you grasp power at the center, the more you centralize power. And what is more example of centralized power than what's happening now? Once you centralize power, you have more power to centralize even quicker. And so the speed of centralization of power gets faster and faster, which is exactly what's happened year on year on year on year on, decade after decade. And the idea is that we have a world government, a world army, this military police state imposing the will of the world government, a world currency, a world central bank dictating all finance, and a human population connected to AI, so AI becomes the human mind. And this world government is not meant to be elected. They are appointees. Think the European Commission. That's the basic blueprint of it, because technocracies do not do democracy. Now, what is being targeted all over the world? Democracy. These cult organizations have been, just by coincidence, nothing to worry about, have been doing massive polls around the world involving tens of thousands of people, asking them if you still believe democracy is the best way to run a society. And the numbers are coming down all the time. Whether they're manipulating it, I don't know, who knows, but they're coming down all the time. And the more you have incompetent politicians and corrupt politicians, which the cult loves, because on one level, it is demolishing trust of the public in the democratic process. And what's basically happening, Brian, with this coronavirus, if you think about it, is that the democratic process has been suspended. It's bureaucrats and technocrats and small groups of politicians that are dictating this all over the world. No one's having a vote on it. No one's having a referendum on it.
No. And so in China, they've said the technology is what kept people from dying. Look at this great model. Same in South Korea, same in Singapore. And I mean, the cases are tiny, like tiny. It doesn't even make sense to me how China could be the epicenter, and now they only have 23 new cases. And it's, most of those are foreign. Like, those numbers don't make sense to me.
Oh, well, maybe they're not true.
And then let me say one more thing. I imagine this, David. Today, Trump comes out and says, to save American lives, I've decided in your safety to use all of your mobile phones to track the people that have gotten...
Israel's just done it.
Have they?
Israel's just changed the law so they can legally track their population through their mobile phones.
I think I saw that. Now, what if Trump came out and said this to Americans and said, in your safety, to save our population, I have to do a federal order, and track everyone's data from now on and where you're going in order to make sure you don't kill the old people and all of that stuff. Most people, David, in the current state of fear would say, thank you, sir.
Save me, save me.
And like you said, for the people that refuse to do it, they would vilify them because you're the one that's going to kill my grandma and do all that stuff.
I'm already seeing...
That's scary.
I'm already seeing articles by academics, not least in America, saying if people aren't vaccinated, they should never be allowed to fly. You know, so when something is being so pushed by a system that couldn't give a damn about the health of the population, look at all the crap in food that is legally allowed, never should be, and all these other things. Look at the pharmaceutical cartel, Big Pharma. The third biggest cause of death in the United States is the frickin' treatment after heart disease and cancer. They care about the health of the population. How does Big Pharma get its money? By the population being sick. And I'll tell you what, Brian, I will take this system seriously. I will think, oh, well, maybe they do care a little bit. When they come out, mainstream everything, mainstream medicine, and say, here is how you boost and strengthen your immune system. Vitamin A, vitamin D3, vitamin C, something to boost the thyroid function, which produces vitamin A. Let's do that. Let's get the immune system going. What are they saying instead? Oh, it's weakened immune systems that why people are dying. Okay, so what are you telling them about how to boost their immune system? Well, they're not. Because first of all, even on a purely financial level, in terms of Big Pharma, what would a strong immune system in the population in general do? Their profits would absolutely frickin' plummet, because it's weakened immune systems that are their profit margin. And you know, some doctors who actually have sussed it are pointing out, you know, that it's not the virus that's killing people. It's their immune system that's killing them. Because it works like this. If you've got a strong immune system, the different levels of the immune system, it's very complex, and you know, mainstream medicine doesn't understand it yet. Honest people within it will actually agree with that. So it's making decisions on vaccines and all this stuff. It doesn't even understand the immune system and how it works. Anyway, there are different levels of it. So you get a virus, the first level will meet it, then the second level will meet it, which is much more specific to that virus. This is the level that creates the reaction that's absolutely encoded to meet that particular threat. And at that point, gone. This is why 80% of people have mild symptoms, because this is what's happening. You get a mild fever, yes, because the immune system's using heat to kill the virus. It's like throwing up. That's the immune system getting rid of something before it does real damage to the body. But when your immune system is compromised through lack of nutrients, shit food, and all the rest of it, these levels of the immune system can't cope, especially if you are someone who has other health problems, because the immune system's already kind of working flat out on that. So what happens then when they fail is the immune system in effect panics, and it unleashes something called a cytokine storm. And these are a substance that is released by the cells, and it is the equivalent of a machine gun firing in all directions, because it's desperate. And I'll give you an analogy of what I mean. An intruder breaks into a house. The homeowner is fighting to deal with the intruder. The intruder's winning, the homeowner's losing, and it's getting desperate. He's getting desperate. So he grabs a gun, and he's so panicked, he's shooting in every direction and shoots at himself. So what this cytokine storm does is unleash this tidal wave of reaction. And it is so powerful and so unfocused that it attacks its own body and kills the body. And you know something? With a coronavirus, when there's a cytokine storm, you know what it attacks? The lungs. And it causes inflammation and gunge in the lungs as a result of that attack. And what are people dying of coronavirus? The elderly and with other health problems. They're dying of respiratory problems.
Pneumonia.
Yeah, and pneumonia. That's another thing. If you read the consequences of a cytokine storm on a coronavirus, it leads to attacks on the lungs, which leads to pneumonia. So as these doctors who are, prepared to tell the truth are pointing out, it's weakened immune systems that are causing people to die. So why isn't the system blasting out in all directions everything you need to do to boost your immune system? Because they care about old people, you see.
What do we do, David? What do we do right now? What does the average citizen do who's watching this right now or who thinks something's funny is going on? I mean, look, I'm walking around London right now and there's nobody here.
No.
I had an entire tube train to myself on the way in. I've been coming to work. I've been going to the gym. I've been shaking hands. I don't see why troops need to be in this city because no one's going out. No one's gathering in groups. Everyone's staying at home. What are troops going to do? Are they going to make it 1% less social distance? It doesn't make sense they're doing this here or in New York City or anywhere else. David.
What is it doing? Setting a precedent.
It's setting a precedent.
Set a
and getting
precedent.
me used to having military around and getting me more scared and trusting the process more. It doesn't make sense. And I agree that I don't know everything, but there's been some things here, David, and I put out some videos about them, and I'm not the dumbest guy in the room. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but some things don't make sense to me.
No, and the reason they don't make sense is it's all a scam to create an outcome. I came over here from Waterloo Station today in a cab, and that guy was telling me he had sat in the line today for 4 hours before I turned up, outside a major British London railway station. And how are people going to survive? How are they going to do it? And when you are in desperate straits, then you will accept things changing if you are persuaded to believe that they will improve your desperate straits, i.e. we need a whole new economic system. Tell you something else. As AI takes over more and more jobs, on top of all this lost employment that's happening now around the world, the question is raised, so how are people going to live? And what's being suggested is a guaranteed income, which, I mean, I've believed since I was a kid that in any civilized society, there should be a level below which people should not fall. There should be a level. I think it's higher than it, and I absolutely think it's higher than it is. So I on that basis would say, well, yeah, a guaranteed income, not a guaranteed outcome, because that's just a race to the bottom and everything will fall apart without incentive. Not a guaranteed outcome, but a guaranteed income, so you can't fall below a certain level. But that's not what this is about. It's about taking away all the job opportunities through AI and things that are happening now, saying, oh, well, we're now going to give you a guaranteed income. Oh, well, yeah, it's going to be very small, and it's going to be so small that you will be permanently in the bottom levels of the Hunger Games society. Oh, and by the way, and this is the key, oh, by the way, thinking of the social credit system in China, you only get the income if you live your life as we say you should live your life. That's the key. So what you're now getting, and again, you know, every box is ticked. You're now saying, well, we're going to give some money out to people because of these desperate straits they're in. And you're starting to set the precedent. Again, it's all psychological, step by step, totalitarian tiptoe. You're starting this perception of moving towards this guaranteed income, which will be guaranteed control.
And they announced yesterday, British government, £330 billion. A chunk of that is these loans to these small businesses, very small, even like £3,000 or here and there. They're going to do the same in the States, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Again, and it seemed weird to me. I get the government loaning me this money or giving me this money. It's a form of control.
It's absolutely a form of control. And also,
because if the economic system is shite anyways,
it's loans.
It's not going to last.
It's loans.
Yeah.
So you have to pay them back.
Right.
And if and if your business is destroyed, what are you going to pay them back with?
Yeah. Yeah.
We are watching the global unfolding of exactly what I've been writing about for 30 years. You know, I look around and it's like, you know, pinch myself. Oh, ouch! It's true. This is what's happening now. And some of it might be rolled back, like I said earlier, but it won't be rolled back to anything like where it started out before this came along.
30 days ago, you put out some videos. Did you think it was going to be like this a month ago? Because you were talking with I think Jamie or Gareth.
Gareth, yeah.
And you were saying, look, I don't know if this is going to be a big pandemic or it might just go away. You said, I hope it goes away. And you're like, we're going to see what's going to happen. And you even said, this is February 28th, you said, we're going to do another one in a month from now and talk about what happens.
Yeah.
And that was 20 days ago, not that long ago. And now look what's happened. We're talking about locking down cities with military.
Yeah. And, you know, I've seen in parts of the alternative media people talking about the fact that this is a genocidal pandemic to wipe out vast numbers of humanity. Well, that will only happen if there is a dramatic mutation of this virus, because at the moment that is not what it's doing. What it's doing is creating the circumstances of fear to justify the solution, which is exactly the solution I've been describing for 30 years. And if people think that is a coincidence, then they need a life membership of Naivety Anonymous, really, because it's now in your face. And we need to face it. And more than anything, Brian, people need to stay frickin' calm. Because unless you're whacking your brakes on when someone walks in front of your car, panic is of no benefit. It never is. It's always a downside. We need to stay calm and not allow this survival mechanism to be triggered so comprehensively that it absolutely dominates all daily perception. Instead of being a fight or flight reaction for a second, it becomes a state of perception, constant fear. And fear always looks outside of itself for what it believes will protect it from what it fears. And this whole cult technique through the ages has been frighten, change, frighten, change, frighten, change. The technique of creative destruction. Wars are classic creative destruction events. You destroy the status quo, as they're destroying this one now. You then, a bit further along the line, you have another reason to fear, which transforms that status quo. And with each change of status quo, you're going closer and closer to the Hunger Games society that's been the plan all along. And if we grasp this and we stay calm and we don't fall into this terror of the unknown, then we can start pushing back on this simply by refusing to cooperate. Refusing to cooperate with our own enslavement. A few can only enslave billions if the billions acquiesce. And through fear of death and fear of this and fear of that, fear of the virus, billions are acquiescing to the few. That's what happens when this survival mechanism is triggered. And we need to go beyond it, not fall into that, and look at things dispassionately, calmly, and we'll see what we'll never see. And then we've got a chance.
I find it fascinating that you say to remain calm, because that's what a cult says is the opposite of what you should do. A cult says, look out for them, we gotta, that's what they want to do, because it gets you to follow their agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're saying the opposite.
It wants you to panic, it wants you to be in fear. What creates fear more than this? What's going on now?
What can we expect to happen in the next few days, in the next few weeks, in the next months? I mean, there's a playbook coming here.
Yeah.
And what's it going to look like? And because the more we can expect what's going to happen, I think it would help people prepare to remain calm and to know when they can say, maybe I don't want to do this.
Well, I think we should be saying that now, frankly. Like I say, we should do everything to protect those that are vulnerable to this virus. But the rest of it, we should be carrying on in every way possible. Otherwise, there's going to be nothing left at the end of it. It's going to be a nightmare scenario. Where will this go from here? This is my view. The question is, at what point does this cult behind all this think that it has got what it wants? At what point does it think the economic system is so damaged that another one has to replace it, and people will be open to that because of the catastrophic nature of how things are? Have we got far enough in this that people will accept more tracking, more control? Have we got far enough that the imposition of a vaccine, even on those that don't want it, will have so much public support that it will be very difficult to resist? These are the questions that will answer the other questions of where this is going. Where it is going and how extreme it becomes will be dictated by how far they think they have to go to get the solutions that they want to take us further and further closer to this Hunger Games society. They are the decisions and the way that they think. And what happens to humanity is irrelevant to these people. I'll tell you, having tracked these people for 30 years, they make a run-of-the-mill psychopath look like Mary Bloody Poppins. We're not dealing with people that have even a smear of empathy. So the idea, we're going to protect old people, please. So this is what the decisions they'll make. Have we reached a situation now? Have we made it so extreme that we can now get what we want? And when they think that we've reached that point, then things will change.
The subcommunication I'm seeing from all of the officials is this is going on for a long time. They're saying 15 days in America, which is going to be extended. They're talking months and months and months. They're mentioning things like July and August of when this might stop, which is a long time from now.
What are you describing? The totalitarian tiptoe? It'll be, we're stopping everything till April the 3rd. Oh, blimey, April the 3rd? Bloody hell, how am I going to earn a living? Oh, no, it's now May. What? Me living's over. Oh, no, now it's June. This is the totalitarian tiptoe. And like I say, when they reach the point that they think, well, we've got to a point now where we're going to be able to get everything we want out of this, then you'll see it flatline.
I don't think we can understate the economic implications of what's going on right now. And I think a lot of people say, especially if they don't have a ton of money, they said, oh, that's just the rich, that's just money. Money's not important as your health. But if you take everyone's capital away, it strains the health and it strains the whole system to where there's a lot more damage that can happen than 10,000, 100,000, than 200,000 people dying. It can be much, much worse and have massive generational implications.
Yeah.
And what they're doing now, I've never seen anything like this. And the New York Times read some numbers about after 9/11, the dips in GDP, the dips in spending, it was minuscule. And yet now you've got everything shut down. I mean, we've never seen anything like this, even like a wartime scenario of the economy just completely going into a vacuum. And everyone's going to feel it. And it's going to cause for irrationality everywhere. And the deaths, like you say, is going to be a blip of the problems we're having.
And then what comes from that?
Yeah.
The law of the jungle. That's what happens when people get desperate. And all these things, I've been in my books for years.
Is some of that happening to convince everybody of this new economic system you're talking about?
Yeah, and also, of course, if you start getting violent reactions and, crime because of desperate people who don't know how they're going to survive, what does that do? It justifies more and more police state to, protect the people. See, this is why, Brian, I've emphasized this a number of times today. Please, they do not give a shit about you. So, when they tell you they do, there's a reason for it, and it's not for your benefit. Because if they give a shit about you, you would not be in the situation you're in. The world would not be as it is. You wouldn't have something like 6 people have as much wealth as the poorest half of the population if they gave a shit about you. So when they tell you they do, they're lying, and they're lying for a reason, to get something as a result of you believing that they actually are trying to protect you. They're not trying to protect old people. They couldn't give a damn. They don't want old people. It's in their documents over the years. They don't want old people because old people, oh no, they can't serve the system anymore. So what did Kissinger call them? Useless eaters. That's what he called them, and that's how they perceive them. And now we're supposed to believe that this is all to protect them. Oh, please, do me a favor. We need to wake up to the fact that something beyond frickin' evil is running this world. I've been trying to get this out for all these years, and I do understand why. Because people do not have, in their lives in general, experience of undiluted evil that has no empathy and no compassion and no emotional consequence for anything it does. When you don't have that in your life, and most people don't, it's very difficult to grasp the scale of evil that's running this world. And the idea that they are trying to protect us by taking our freedom away is such a joke, it's unbelievable. If people don't like that, well, they can do the other thing. I don't mind.
I had a flashback when I was coming into work this morning, and I just thought, what was it like in Germany in, say, 39, where all of a sudden all these rights are being taken away? And I was like, it must have been weird in this state. And I always used to wonder, why didn't everybody leave? But you've got your family there and your businesses and your properties there, so you put up with a little more, and you put up with a little more. And then they vilify this group over here. And I don't know. And I don't think about this stuff that often. I'm not a history buff, but it just snapped in my mind. And I was just like, what's going on here? David, a lot of people will listen to us today and go away really depressed and really down and not see any type of future. I know you don't like leaving people that way. So what is something people can go away with a positive note? What's something they can focus on? Are we going to get through this?
Well, I've just finished a book, which is going to come out next few months, which is all about what we can do. And you know, there's many elements to it, although there's an absolute core to it. And one of the key things we need to do, I would say, is to change our self-identity. If you identify as your name, your life story, your race, your religion, your background, whatever, you are identifying with a set of labels that are transitory and are incredibly brief. And those set of labels are not you. They are what you are experiencing. I am not David Icke. I am a point of attention, which can be myopic or vast, within an infinite stream of consciousness. And you are a point of attention in that same consciousness that observes reality from a different point of view. We are all points of attention in that same one consciousness, which is why racism is so ludicrous. And if you self-identify with your labels as the I, the total I, then you see the world in a certain way, and it can be very frightening. But when you self-identify as I am eternal, infinite awareness having this experience, and when I leave the body, which is just a way that the body focuses our attention within a tiny band of frequency, and when we leave the body, our attention expands far as we want it to, because that attention is no longer being focused through the body, through the five senses. And we go on experiencing and exploring forever. This is a brief experience for a point of eternal consciousness that we give a name to. And when you observe the world from that perspective, which is where I've been coming from for a long time now, it's not so frightening. And you have the ability to connect dots because you're seeing things from a panorama and not a myopia. And from myopia can seem very, very fearful, but from the panorama, it's just another experience. And one of the things I go into in the book, and we'll chat about this when it comes out, I'm sure, is our perceptions, and it can be explained very simply how this works, our perceptions become our experience. And if you fall into fear of something, everything that everything in this reality, everything, even the coronavirus, is a frequency. Every thought is a frequency. Fear is a frequency. It's a different frequency to love. It's a different frequency to joy. And we live in this sea of frequency, of possibility and probability. And it's like being a computer that is living in a Wi-Fi sea. And within that Wi-Fi sea is everything on the internet. And so potentially you can put anything on the internet on your screen, your experience. But our perceptions are also frequencies. And so if we are in a frequency of fear and we are generating that frequency, that field, that electromagnetic field, we are going to make a symbiotic frequency connection with like frequencies. And what we do is we draw to us as an experience what we fear. And all the time, people say, this is always happening to me. Hey, Ethel, it's happened again. Why? Why do certain things keep repeating in people's lives but not repeat in others? Because what they're putting out as perception, which is a frequency field, is drawing towards them in like a magnetic phenomenon. It's drawing to them what they're putting out. And so if you fall into fearing something, the likelihood of that becoming your experience is massively increased. I've experimented with this through my life. And you know, I had very serious rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, I remember on one occasion I was trying to walk through Terminal 5 at Heathrow Airport, and literally I was shuffling my feet. I had no shoes on. I was shuffling my feet along towards the plane because I couldn't even lift my legs. I don't have that now. I have no pain. It doesn't affect my life in any way. And the difference is, I changed my perception. See, why is it that so many people die within the period that the doctor tells them they have to live? How long have I got, doctor? 6 months. They die in 6 months, over and over and over again. And you know something? People have been told they have a fatal disease. The doctor has given them a prognosis, you have so long to live, and they've died. And when they've done the post-mortem, they didn't have the fatal disease. Because the mind is all powerful. It's constantly creating our reality. Its perceptions are constantly becoming our experience. And so I decided that if my reality was being controlled by my perceptions, then my perception is this arthritis is not going to trouble me anymore, and it's not going to progress, and it's not going to have me in a wheelchair and wizened up. And that's exactly what's happened. No drugs, no doctor. That's exactly what's happened. And everybody has the power to use their mind to dictate their own reality. Why is it that this cult, this system, is so desperate to control human perception? Because it knows human perception becomes human experience. And if we fall into states of fear, we are going to manifest fear, reasons to fear all around us. But if we take our minds back, we take our consciousness back, we can create a different reality. Because what is human society? It's the sum total of human perception. Human perception changes, human society must change, because it's just a reflection of the sum total of human perception. We love each other, we live in a loving world. We hate each other, we live in a world of hate. We fear, we live in a world of fear. We are in control. They've just persuaded us we're not.
I'm so excited for this new book, David. And the message you just said, I've heard from some of the greatest minds that have ever sat in that chair, especially ones that have been around for a little while. They come to the same conclusion as you have, that we are what we believe, and the energy we put out there is what we get back.
Exactly. This book is all about that in a very accessible way, because they say the more you know, the more you know there is to know. Well, yeah, on one level that's right. But there's another way: the more you know, the more you realize how little there is to actually know to take control of your life and your life experience. And so much of the complexity hides these simple, sparkling truths. Genius, this is the misunderstanding of the academic intellectual mind. It perceives understanding complexity as intelligence and cleverness, when genius is seeing the simple hidden by complexity. And in the end, when you get down to the core, we are what we perceive. Change what you perceive, and you'll change what you experience.
And that applies to right now almost even more.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm not in fear, if I'm not worried about this stuff, then I don't react to it. I had a friend of mine who said, Brian, I don't see you running into the store and buying these things, worried about
Nor
this.
me.
I was like, well, I'll just fast or I'll just do this. And actually, I've come to a point where I'm probably more ready to die than I've ever been in my life, because I feel like I've done a lot of the things I need to do. And I don't want to die, but I'm to a point where I'm not always reacting in fear. And I'm trying to think of things from different planes of thought.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel very in power and control and calm.
But you see, when you move your self-identity to I am an infinite point of attention within an infinite state of consciousness, what does that immediately do? It deletes the fear of death. What is death? It's a withdrawing of our point of attention. That's all death is. It's a transfer of our point of attention. That's all it is. So there's nothing to fear. And once you let go of fear of death, so many things that you are able to be manipulated through that fear of death go. You can't manipulate anymore. Fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown? Well, I like surprises. You know what I mean? Just, it completely transforms everything when you re-self-identify with the I. And fear of death is the first one to go. And I'm the same as you. I don't want to leave here until I've done everything I can do to contribute. And I think I'm going to be around for a long time. And in so many ways, and I explain this in the book, we can dictate how long we're around. Again, if the mind can transform rheumatoid arthritis, which should have had me in a wheelchair by now, but hasn't and won't, then it can transform anything, including the nature of life. I explain in the book how you can think yourself alive and you can think yourself dead. So I'm going to stay around and make the best contribution I can. But when I go, I will be, yes. Do we want to stay in this myopia band of frequency forever? Are you having a laugh? What a nightmare. So it's just an experience. And then we move on and experience the infinity of forever. I mean, oh, I'm terrified. Coronavirus. Oh, gold, we're all going to die. I don't think so.
Final thoughts, David, on everything we talked about today. The virus, the lockdown, the recession, just anything.
Well, I would just say what I said earlier in terms of, if you want to understand the world, find out where we're being taken, what the goal is, and then the world just opens up. Oh, so that's why they're doing that. Oh, so that's why that's happening. Instead of, what's happening? What's happening? Oh, what are they doing that for? It becomes so clear. And what you do is then you take control of your perception. Because it's very difficult to manipulate people, impossible to manipulate people when you understand the game. Because how does problem, reaction, solution manipulate you when you understand how it works? How does the totalitarian tiptoe manipulate you when you understand how it works? Know the game, and you can win the game, instead of being a victim of the game, which is what's happened up to this point.
And that's good advice to anyone watching. Know the game, and you can win the game. Remain calm. Separate you from yourself. Understand your infinite consciousness, and then make your decision.
Yeah. Just stay calm. We are an infinite point of eternal consciousness on an eternal journey of exploring all possibility. That's as bad as it gets. This is just an experience. We can make it a nice experience, or we can make it an unpleasant experience. We have the power to choose. And it's about time we'd realize that, because when enough people do, this cult is history.
And what a great time for us to realize this. This could be a great catalyst for realization.
Oh,
too.
I think it is, Brian. I mean, we need to appreciate the difference between those that control the microphones and so many people, not all by any means, but so many people and gathering in number who don't get to the microphones. You see the activists and the climate cult activists and the coronavirus activists and the frickin' transgender activists and all that, and the politically correct activists, and then you talk to the public and you see a completely different perception to that. But because they dominate the microphones, as of course they do because that's the agenda, people can get the impression that that's what the population thinks. It doesn't. It doesn't. My father used to say, the silent majority is silent because it's got nothing to say. It's time for the silent majority to speak. And when we do, things will change, but not until.
And that's something you said in the last episode or the episode before. You said for people should always feel free to say how they feel. That's the most important thing. You shouldn't feel like you can't say how you feel. You should say how you feel.
It simply comes to self-respect. I ask people, what are you doing allowing someone else to tell you what to think, to tell you what you can say, to tell you what you can believe? What are you doing? Where's your self-respect? And we live in a world of psychological fascism where people are constantly seeking to impose their beliefs on other people. We see it with religion all the time. We see it with the woke mentality all the time. I believe this, so you must believe that. And if people acquiesce to that, then tyranny rules. And if we don't, if we say, you can call me what you like, and people do, I don't care. Call me this, call me that, call me the other. Well, thanks for sharing that with me. Have a nice day. But you say it anyway. And if enough people say it and refuse to bow to this psychological tyranny, imposing on our lives what we can be, what we can say, what we can think, the number of people being imposed upon is vast compared with the number of people doing the imposing. I think I see a way out of this. You know, stiffen the backbone, grow a pair, say what you believe, have self-respect in your own uniqueness, and don't let anyone take it away. And if we live in a world of multiple uniqueness, where everyone is celebrating their own uniqueness, their own unique, all part of the same consciousness, yes, but their own unique point of attention, then that true diversity means tyranny can't reign. What does every tyranny want to do? Centralize everything, including perception. The more we celebrate our uniqueness, the more we are withdrawing from the ability of the few at the center to dictate to everybody. You will think this. I won't. You will say that. You won't say that. I will. What are they going to do? Why do people acquiesce and self-censor? Fear.
Right.
Get rid of fear, the world changes. Because the world is controlled by fear. Delete fear, delete control.
David, it's always a pleasure having you on.
Real pleasure. I'm going to shake your hand.
Yeah, I'll shake your hand.
Don't you give me anything nasty now.
I won't. And let me just say, you know, clearly I don't agree with you on everything. But that's okay, because I feel like I can speak my mind in front of you, and I really appreciate
but
that.
I would be disappointed if you did, because you would not be unique.
Exactly. And I'm so glad I had you on. About 3 years ago, when I was going to have you on, I thought of all the reasons I shouldn't have you on. And every time you come
I bet that took some time.
It did. Who is this crazy guy? And people said, don't have David Icke on your show. And you were here, and that first episode, you blew me away with how most of the things you said made total sense to me. And I had you on again, and this is the fourth time. And I'll be honest, David, a lot of people told me not to have you on today. And I had to go back. And I thought, every time I have David on, he always shows me that he's got some amazing knowledge and amazing perspective about what's going on here. And I'm so glad I had you on to talk about this stuff.
Why wouldn't people want me on?
Exactly.
I have no problem with you interviewing anyone you choose with any opinion that they have. So where does tyranny come from? Me? Or those that say, don't have him on? They might find a mirror, they might look at it, and they might learn something.
We're going to end it on that statement. David, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And in some ways, David, I love you as well. So keep doing what you do. I really appreciate it. For everybody else out there, please listen to this message, meditate on it, change your behavior, change your thoughts, and everything else will change. And we're going to make it through this, right?
Pleasure.
Thank you, David.
Pleasure, Brian, as always.
Thank you.
Cheers, man.
All right.